Sorry, I was thinking about having sex with your mom.
Today's video is sponsored by Under Lucky Stars. Under Lucky Stars make these gorgeous, personal—
It's a scam, guys! It's a scam! It's a scam! It's a scam! Okay, move on. I don't know if it's a scam. I was just making a joke, alright?
Several years ago, I covered a Jane Doe mystery with potential Hollywood links. I am, of course, talking about the Lady of the Dunes.
My mom's a lesbian. It doesn't stop me from thinking about having sex with your mom. My mom's gross. It doesn't matter.
To recap, on July 26th, 1974, a 12-year-old girl and her parents were walking their dog through the sandy Race Point Dunes of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, when they made a terrible discovery. As their dog wandered off the main trail, the young girl followed
Oh
it,
yeah, I remember this.
and in doing so, stumbled upon the half-rotten body of a woman. Needless to say—
Wait, did we see like the actual solving of this?
Family immediately rushed to summon a park ranger. It was estimated that this dead woman was between 25 and 40 years old. Given her state of decomposition and the amount of insect activity, pathologists believe that she had been dead for several weeks. Though seeing how she had been found just off the main road, it's possible, even probable, that she had been kept at a different location for most of that time before being placed on the dunes.
I'm not spoiling anything!
The scene itself was a grisly one. The woman was lying face down atop a beach blanket and almost appeared to be sunbathing. She wasn't wearing any clothes, though her head was resting atop a pair of neatly folded Wrangler jeans, as well as a blue bandana. Her head itself had almost been sliced clean off and was hanging on by a mere thread.
Don't ever talk
though
about my
experts
mama
believe
again.
that her life had actually been ended via a strong blow to the skull. The left side of her cranium had been crushed. There weren't any signs of a struggle, suggesting that the victim either knew her killer or was asleep when her head was bludgeoned. Disturbingly, both of her hands had been hacked off. Despite a thorough search of the area, investigators were never able to find either appendage. They had likely been removed and taken by her killer to prevent the authorities from identifying her. Several of her teeth had also been removed, likely for the same reason. This was, of course, before the days of DNA testing, and so with no prints or dental records to work with, figuring out who this handless and near-headless woman was going to be a monumental task. With no name to work with, the detectives dubbed her the Lady of the Dunes. For nearly 5 decades, investigators did their utmost to give the Jane Doe back her real name. They combed through thousands of missing person reports, though none of them were a match. They went from neighborhood to neighborhood, questioning locals, though none of them knew who the Lady of the Dunes was. They created clay sculptures of her head and released AI-generated images and age-regressed composites of her, showing what she may have looked like as a younger woman, hoping to jog the memories of those who had known her in the past. But nobody seemed to remember her. After almost half a century passed with no new developments, it began to feel like the Lady of the Dunes was a ghost who never really existed. Like her body had been found, but her soul had been lost to time.
It is crazy. Like, I always find it crazy that like people can die, and you have all these like great sketches of them, yet no one comes forward to find them, or like no one
known her during her lifetime.
No one cares about this
but
person?
Upon her untimely end, she had been totally forgotten. Forgotten by everyone, that is, except for the sick individual who had taken her life. In August of 2015, somebody finally came up with a potential clue. And that person just so happened to be Joe Hill, the son of Stephen King. Whilst watching the movie Jaws, Joe noticed a familiar
I remember this
looking extra in the background of the 4th of July scene, 54 minutes and 2 seconds into the film.
Thus?
This extra bore a strong resemblance to the Lady of the Dunes, and was wearing a blue bandana identical to the one found at the crime scene, as well as a pair of blue Wrangler jeans. This unknown extra and the unknown victim also had the same hair length and build. Chillingly, this scene had been filmed in the village of Menemsha on May 25th, 1974, just 100 miles from where the Dune Lady was found, and right around the same time she would have died. Joe posited that the Lady of the Dunes may have actually been this uncredited extra, and that if the authorities could just get their hands on a list of people who showed up for filming, they may well uncover who she really was. This wild theory drew a lot of new eyes to the case. After all, the prospect of a Jane Doe being forever immortalized in a blockbuster film, well, there's something morbidly fascinating about that blend of pop culture and real-life mystery. In Joe Hill's own words, it is a hell of a what if, isn't it?
Shark probably came out of the water, cut her head off, cut her hands off, took her hands away, put her back on the land, placed her head on top of the jeans that were folded, then swam back in the water. So it could be a shark.
What if the young murder victim no one has ever been able to identify has been seen by hundreds of millions of people in a beloved summer classic, and they didn't even know they were looking at her? What if the ghost of the Lady of the Dunes haunts Jaws? It goes without saying that in the years since this incident took place, technology has advanced significantly. Recently, I've covered numerous cold cases that have been solved via genealogical techniques in particular, where forensic scientists take the DNA of an unidentified suspect or victim, link them to distant family members, and build a family tree to uncover who they really were. Well, investigative genealogy is exactly the method that the FBI used to finally close this cold case, too. That's right. As of October 31st, 2022, nearly half a century after her body was discovered in Provincetown, Massachusetts, I'm happy to report that the Lady of the Dunes has been given back her real name. She was Ruth Marie Terry, a 37-year-old Tennessee mother who also had ties to California, Massachusetts.
Okay, that looks nothing like the pictures that they had, I'm not gonna lie.
And Michigan. Little is known about the final months of Ruth's life, though, according to a marriage certificate, she married a man named Guy Rockwell Moldavin in Reno just 6 months before her demise.
Thus?
For whatever reason, she actually used a fake name on her marriage certificate, Terry Marie Vizina. Her new husband, Guy, also used a fake name,
Guy Fieri?
Raoul. That may have been because he was a man with a dark history. A career conman, he was suspected to have killed both his second wife, Manzanita, as well as his stepdaughter, Dolores, back in 19...
I mean, you wouldn't think those are a couple red flags. Oh, what, you killed your previous wife? I think, you know what, I think I could fix you. I think I can fix you, you know.
1960. Bits of their hair and flesh were found in the septic tank of their Seattle family home, though due to a lack of evidence, Guy was never charged with their slayings.
So he got away with 3
killings? He was also the prime
killings?
Suspect in the 1950 murder of Henry Bard and the disappearance of his girlfriend, Barbara Jo Kelly.
5?
But again, there was never enough evidence to formally charge him. Guy went on to swindle his third wife and mother-in-law out of a hefty sum of money before
6?
going on to meet and marry Ruth. With that backstory in mind, it's easy to see why he's considered the prime suspect in Ruth's case as well. Though, as it stands, the authorities are still working to prove that definitively. Given all the advancements that have been made in this case recently, I don't doubt that they'll be able to do that. Though, even if they do, Guy Rockwell Moldavin will never face justice for his terrible actions. He passed away in 2002, aged 78.
How do you live that long, kill that many people, and get away with it?
Case itself
He's still alive? Oh God, no. He would be what, 90, 98 right now if he's still alive?
Officially solved yet. The Jane Doe side of this mystery has. And although her identity went unknown for more than 48 years, perhaps we were all more familiar with Ruth than we realized. Could Ruth Terry be this extra in Jaws? We still don't know the answer to that question. Doesn't really look like her. Perhaps we never will.
Could still be alive. He literally just said he died at 78.
That one of the world's most iconic movies could also contain the last known footage of Ruth, the Lady of the Dunes, mere days before her life was cut short, is honestly unsettling.
What's up, Izzy Art?
At approximately 5 p.m. on November 6th, 2020, 45-year-old Alicia Belera Esquembre was walking her dog, Leo, around the outskirts of her hometown, La Jolla, just south of Elche, Spain. A kind-hearted, hard-working, and well-liked woman, Alicia had just earned a position in Elche's justice system. Being such an integral part of her community, people quickly became concerned when she took longer than usual to return home from her dog walk.
Yeah, the extra thing was not, it's not confirmed. It's just like, possibly, but I don't know.
Would be short-lived, and would instead quickly be replaced with grief. At 6 p.m, Alicia's body was found at the edge of a crop field just south of La Jolla, only 200 meters from her home.
Oh God.
Alicia's face had been left submerged in the irrigation system pictured here, and it was determined that her slayer had strangled her using a chokehold. There were no defensive wounds to speak of, suggesting that she had been surprised from behind and taken out extremely quickly. All of her possessions were found at the scene, and the perpetrator hadn't defiled her remains in any way, so the motive for this slaying remained a mystery. As for Alicia's dog, Leo, he was nowhere to be found.
No, not the dog.
The following morning, Leo was found waiting outside the building where Alicia lived with her mother, clearly shaken and not himself, though ultimately
doggy, no. That's so sad.
Unharmed.
Poor dog.
He had been wandering the streets of La Jolla.
I mean, obviously, poor lady who died,
no doubt terrified about what had happened.
Dog.
Nobody knew it at the time, but Leo, the loyal canine, had not only been the sole witness to the killing, but would largely be responsible for solving the case entirely. Early into the investigation, a group of witnesses said that they had seen a suspicious man around the crop fields around the time Alicia's life was taken. Since this individual was wearing a face mask, they weren't able to give many details about his appearance.
The trauma.
What they did all agree on, however, was that the man walked with a distinct limp. As it would turn out, that limp had been caused by Leo. The dog had bitten deep into the killer's leg as he attacked his master, causing the man to bleed onto Leo's leash and leaving the authorities with some vital DNA evidence to work with.
Leo for the save!
On the 3rd of November, 2022, it was announced that that DNA had finally been matched to the perpetrator. Nikolai Tishov, a Russian man who had been living in the same town as Alicia at the time of the incident.
What is that? What is he doing? Is he running? What is this stance? What is he? This is like in between a walk and a run. What the fuck?
And who suffers from paranoid
delusions.
That
dog deserves a medal.
When his mother, a wealthy businesswoman, heard about what Nikolai had done, she immediately booked her son a ticket back to Russia.
I was gonna say Andrew Tate. I just didn't want to do it, but someone else said it for me. Okay, so I'm fine now.
Just 4 weeks after arriving back in his homeland, Nikolai would take the life of another woman in Moscow.
Of course.
As it stands, he's currently locked up in a psychiatric institution in Smolensk, Russia. Back in July 2020, 4 months before he took Alicia's life, Nikolai had attempted to end the life of another woman in Torrevieja. During his getaway, CCTV cameras caught these images of Nikolai, which were subsequently released to the public. One of Nikolai's friends later recognized him and reported him to the authorities. From that tip, Spanish police worked with Interpol to gather a DNA sample from Nikolai in Russia.
Got sold out. Good.
Once collected, they were able to match the sample with the DNA found on Leo's dog leash.
Oh no, yeah, dogs can experience trauma just as deep as humans can experience trauma, for sure.
Also linked Nikolai to the slaying of Antonio Huerta, a 66-year-old man who had his head near cut off in eastern Spain, shortly before Alicia's life was taken. Had Leo not defended his master and taken a bite out of Nikolai's leg that fateful evening, both Alicia's and Antonio's slayings would have gone unsolved.
Dude, this is why dogs are the best, man.
So I think it's fitting to end this entry with these words. Good boy, Leo.
Good boy, oh, yes. Good boy, Leo. Good boy.
Finally, I'd like to end things with a quick update on the Somerton Beachman case. A big thank you to subscriber Lee Simon for bringing this update to my attention. As mentioned in my last episode of this mini-series, just this October, the Beachman's true identity was finally revealed to the world. His name was Charles Webb, a man from Melbourne who possibly came to Adelaide in search of his ex-wife, only to wind up lifeless on Somerton Beach. But although his name was revealed, we still didn't have any confirmed photos of Charles during his lifetime to examine. There was this picture, which, more than likely, did show Charles posing alongside other members of his under-16s football team. But back when I made that video, we still didn't know for sure which of these boys he was. I suggested that this was the most likely candidate. Well, we now know for sure which of these lads he was, and I was wrong. As it turns out, he was actually this young chap, in the front row on the far left. This image shows Charles as a teenager, which is all well and good, but I'm also pleased to tell you that we now know what he looked like as a living adult, too. Stuart Webb and other living members of the Webb family have since found pictures of Charles in a dusty photo album, and have been kind enough to share them with the world. And so I present to you the face of the Somerton Beachman, Charles Webb, pictured here on a big family day out, playing some sort of prank on his brother-in-law, Gerald Keane.
After all these decades. How long was it?
This labelled image of Charles was also uncovered. Until recently, Stuart and his sister Christy had no idea about their connection to the Somerton mystery, and weren't aware they were related to the mysterious man found on the beach all those decades ago.
Solitaire.
For them,
no, that's one of those ancestry things.
The revelation that he was one of their relatives was a bittersweet one. It was happiness, it was joy, said Christy. But there was also some sadness about this forgotten family member. This was a person. He wasn't just a media hit for a little while, and an unsolved mystery. He was our family. Now the living members of the Webb family have a new question that they're seeking the answer to. Why didn't any of Charles's family at the time, pictured here, smiling alongside him, try to search for him when he went missing?
Yeah.
We may never know the answer to that question, but there has been one final development that does shed some light on how Charles came to perish on Somerton Beach. As mentioned in the last video, for years, many people believed that Charles was actually a foreign spy, and that he had been taken out by another agent. Since we know that's not the case, the main theory now is that Charles took his own life. Looking at his 1951 divorce papers, which have recently been dug up, that really does seem to be the case. In those documents, Charles's ex-wife, Dorothy, described Charles as moody, a man with no particular friends of his own, who was often in bed by 7 p.m. In those papers, she went on to say...
Okay, that's me, except in bed by 7 p.m. Wait, what's wrong with the dude being moody? That means he's gonna kill himself because he's moody?
That Charles said, quote, written many poems, most of them on the subject of death, which he claims to be his greatest desire.
Oh.
In the documents,
never mind.
Dorothy even recounted how one evening she had returned home and found Charles attempting to end his own existence. With that information now available, it seems extremely likely that Charles attempted to do so yet again on Somerton Beach in
Dudes
1948.
don't have feelings, duh.
This time with poison. And this time, successfully.
True.
Unless there are any further major revelations, this will be the last time I'll discuss the Somerton Beachman case. As far as most of us are concerned,
10, dude. I'm
the
in bed
mystery
around
has,
2.
broadly
I need to
speaking,
fix that,
been
man.
solved, with only a few minor details still missing. And as it turns out, the truth really was much more tragic than many of us wanted to believe. The Somerton man's life wasn't filled with spy antics and espionage. He had actually been a man, living a troubled and unhappy existence.
That's sad.
But instead of those infamous and bleak photos of Charles that were taken after his untimely end, let it be this photo that we now remember him by.
Is it, fellas, is it gay to have feelings? Bro, I think so. Dude, I don't know, man. Having feelings?
When times were good, and
know,
when he was smiling and surrounded by family. Rest easy, Charles.
That's true. The 1950s, it definitely was. You're right, honestly. Only anger allowed, dude. So true. That's why I'm so mentally fucked up right now, chat.
Now it's time to walk away. I hope you enjoyed your stay. Did you laugh or cry or maybe subscribed? I'll thank you either way. You know I will miss you. I hope you return. Tell your friend or your mother to get me more views, please.